So I continue my look at prospects in this 2016 NFL draft class, and I'm sticking with wide receivers. And today I'm here to talk about Will Fuller from Notre Dame, the 6 foot, 185-pound junior who has established himself to be one of the better deep threats in this 2016 NFL draft class. Now, me being a Notre Dame Fighting Irish guy, I've watched a lot of his games over the past few years. So I feel like I have a good sense for Will Fuller and his strengths and his weaknesses and how he kind of projects at the NFL level. But maybe that's just me. In terms of what I like about his game and what I've enjoyed about his game over the past couple of years, I look at a guy with really, really nice quickness. I mean, he's not the quickest dude I've ever seen, but he's got plenty of quickness, more than enough quickness to be able, especially in a situation where somebody's not getting up on him and not getting physical with him, not pressing with him, to be able to get into a situation where he wants to get into, that he could be the guy that could, from the beginning, already get into a situation where he can set up defensive backs to get separation. He also has the over the top deep speed to be able to stretch defenses vertically. And in the NFL today, you need those guys that can help you stretch the field both horizontally and then ultimately vertically. And Will Fuller is definitely one of those guys that I envision being able to translate his success of stretching defenses vertically down the field at the college level to the NFL level. I don't know if he runs a 4-3, he probably runs more around a 4-4, but he plays at times like he runs a 4-3. I point to the game against USC, their first offensive snap, and he's smoking, of all people, Adoree Jackson from USC, which is no small feat, and he's smoking him down the field for, I think, a 70-plus yard touchdown catch. I mean, and he roasted the dude. I mean, he took the top off of Adoree Jackson. I mean, that speaks to his initial quickness and burst, and that speaks to his, just as importantly, if not more so, his sustained vertical threat speed. But I think there's more than that when you look at his game. I look at a guy that once he gets the ball, he can make something happen with the ball in his hands. He's got some nice open field agility, a guy that can pick up some yards after the catch. He's not the best guy in this draft at that. I think that's Corey Coleman from Baylor, but he's definitely in the top of that category in terms of guys that can get the ball and make something happen. I also like his route running ability. In terms of the routes that I've seen him run at Notre Dame over the past couple of years, I thought he was pretty good, especially when you factor in that quickness, that speed. If teams are playing off of him, here's a guy that I would expect with the route running tree that he has, and usually the precision that he runs his routes with, will have no trouble being able to get separation at the NFL level. There's other things I like about him. He's not a big dude, 6 foot, 100. I know he's listed at like 6 foot 190. I wouldn't be surprised if he's 180, 185 pounds. I listed him at 185. This guy's a solid run blocker. I mean, he's not going to knock people's socks off, but he's a guy that is an asset as a run blocker. So when you bring him in as an NFL team, you're not looking at somebody that's tipping you off that this is probably going to be a pass play. Will Fuller being on the field doesn't make you one-dimensional, and I like that out of a player like him, and I love the effort that he shows in his run blocking. I point to one play this year, I think it was UMass, and I believe it was C.J. Procise is running down the field, and all of a sudden here comes Will Fuller from the other side of the field coming down to make a block. Not a devastating block, but enough of a block from all the way on the other side of the field, 40, 50 yards down the field, to help C.J. Procise get into the end zone, because without that block, C.J. Procise probably doesn't score. And I love seeing that type of effort. And in general, effort is one of those buzzwords I like to use about Will Fuller's game. I always felt like he was playing hard. I always felt like he was giving consistent effort. He was giving consistent effort in the routes that he ran. He was giving consistent effort in his blocking. He was giving consistent effort when he was going to catch the ball. Once he got the ball, what he did with it. I like the effort that he showed consistently in his game, and that's something I do envision a lot of scouts liking for the NFL level. Now I get over some of the love fest part of Will Fuller. I have some concerns, and some significant concerns about him and projecting him to the NFL level. You got to look at his frame. To me, it's not just the fact of his height. It's the fact that he's a lean-built type of guy. Those are the type of guys that I'm concerned about. 185 pounds, not a lot of muscle on them. Do you really want to send that guy over the middle a lot? What happens if he takes a big hit? Is this a guy that's going to be susceptible to a particular lower body injuries? That lean build, he needs to put on weight both in his upper and lower body. And that's something you can work on in an NFL strength program, and you hope that he does it in a way that doesn't too negatively impact his quickness or his speed. but he's a guy that does need to get bigger and stronger. He most certainly does, because otherwise it could create some other problems. I think when you look at that too, the 6 foot, 185-pound frame, you're talking about that lean build. This is where he could really run into trouble against people that press him. If he runs up against these press corners that don't allow him to get off with that quick burst and affect him and redirect him and reroute him, he could run into some real trouble. And I have some concerns about if you get into that situation, especially if you're lining him up outside against a number 1 or number 2 corner at the NFL level and they're playing up on him, they're playing press man, can you take Will Fuller out of the game? And I think he could, which could some ways make you wonder if he's best suited to only play the slot at the NFL level. That's where I talk about, again, he's got to get bigger and stronger. He's got to get better with his technique and using his hands and setting up the defenders to be able to more effectively and consistently beat press coverage. Also, you look at him, for a 6-foot dude, you like to see a guy that plays like he's 6'4", 6'5", with a huge catch radius and a great ability to high point the ball and go make the spectacular catch. And I don't know if I really see that from Will Fuller. I don't see a dude with a tremendous catch radius. It's not bad, but it's not outstanding. It's about the catch radius I would expect from a 6-foot wide receiver. Also, in terms of his ability to high point the ball, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying I didn't see him do it consistently enough at Notre Dame to suggest that he's going to be a guy that you want to throw a lot of jump balls to at the NFL level in the red zone. Which, again, makes you wonder, is he best suited for the slot? And then biggest concern I have about him, in spite of those other ones, my biggest concern are his hands. Had a lot of bad drops. He put the ball on the field a lot the past 2 years. He would make some great, spectacular catches, and he would make some big plays. But, man, he would have some really bad focus drops. He would have some really bad concentration drops. Sometimes he'd let the ball get too close to his body. Sometimes he just wouldn't look the ball into his hands. Either way, you're going to have to be patient with him as a coaching staff, as a front office, knowing that if you draft this guy, he might make that spectacular play, but he might kill you in another way because he drops that easy catch on 3rd and 8 that would have went for 10 yards and a first down. He puts it on the ground. And can you live with that? Knowing how impatient NFL head coaches and coaching staffs in general are with wide receivers that drop the ball, especially young and rookie wide receivers dropping the ball. Could this potentially land them in the doghouse early? Is this something that could potentially be a mental problem going forward? You got to be careful with that. In terms of an NFL comparison for him, I've heard a lot of Deshaun Jackson, and I see some of that, although he's a little bit taller than Deshaun Jackson, and Deshaun Jackson, I think, is quite a bit more explosive, most certainly quicker, and I think he had better deep speed than Will Fuller. I get some of that. But I think a better comparison for me is actually Doug Baldwin of the Seattle Seahawks. Quickness and speed and precision are kind of the names of the game for them. They're sometimes very reliant on making the big play in order to have an impact on the game. I think they put forth consistent effort, and they try consistently. But up until this year in particular, I thought that was a big bugaboo of Doug Baldwin's game, is that if he didn't make the 40 or 50-yard catch, he really was a non-factor. And at times he would play like he was an undrafted player out of Stanford, because you'd see games where he had 1 catch for 8 yards. In other games, he would have 6 or 7 catches for 130 yards because he had that 160-yard bomb that he caught from Russell Wilson. So this year, we saw Doug Baldwin be a more consistent option in the passing game, especially once Jimmy Graham went down for the knee year with that patella tendon injury. And that could be what Will Fuller is, a guy that, needs to rely on that big play, especially early on in his career, to have any type of impact. I do like his blocking effort, similar to Doug Baldwin. A guy that's a good fit for a power running team, guys that put forth effort. But again, a guy that struggles with press coverage. And I see Will Fuller having a lot of trouble struggling with press coverage, especially at the NFL level. And not much of a huge jump ball threat. Not a guy with a tremendously huge catch radius. Can make some big plays, but can have some bad drops too. I think the comparison to Doug Baldwin is actually a pretty appropriate one. In terms of Will Fuller and what I project for him overall at the NFL level, I think the success of smaller, quicker wide receivers helps him and his draft stock, because with the proliferation of the passing game in the NFL over the past decade, you value potentially a number 3 wide receiver more than you did 5, 8, 10 years ago. I love the fact that he gives consistent effort in his game in terms of both as a wide receiver in the passing game and in the running game as well. His route running going along with that speed and quickness are potentially a very dangerous combination. It makes him a guy that could be a nice big play weapon at the NFL level. But his lean frame gives me some pause for concern in terms of his ability to be durable at the NFL level long term. You know, his ability to beat press coverage. Can he be somebody that you could get up in his grill? You could sit there and redirect him and reroute him, send him where you want to, send him to the help inside in the middle of the defense. Is he a guy that's too big play reliant and therefore is going to be very much a yo-yo up and down in terms of his NFL career? Is he going to be somebody that will have those big plays and those big games and people will be buzzing about it and we'll be watching the highlights on YouTube and on SportsCenter, but then on other games we don't hear anything about him and we get too caught up in the love of the big play and we don't focus on the consistent things. I think at the end of the day, Will Fuller may be best suited for the slot. Like I said, he's not a guy with a huge catch radius. He's got that lean build. He struggles with press coverage. As a result, you play him in the slot. You're able to move him around easier. It makes it more likely to be able to give him a free release off of the line of scrimmage. I think he's still a good talent, though. I think he's somebody that's a top 40 to 50 guy, somewhere in there. The only reason I don't narrow it down for sure is because I haven't evaluated every single major prospect in the 2016 NFL draft class. So just seeing who I've evaluated so far and where I've put Will Fuller and where I think he'll end up, probably for me somewhere between maybe 35 or 40 all the way down to 50. I think at the end of the day, because of that quickness and speed, and because of the slot receiver being more valued than it has been in recent years, he's still a guy that has a chance to go late in round one, probably ends up going within the first few picks of round number 2. And I think if you take him in the first few picks of round number 2, you've got to like the talent, the potential, the upside of taking a player there. I really, really do. So, we'll see. Could he be a guy that plays above the projection I have for him right now? Perhaps. Could he be a guy, though, that is also maddeningly inconsistent and reliant on the big play and frustrating at times to watch because he should be a lot more than he actually is? I think there's a very big chance of that, too. So I don't hate him as a prospect. I just have other wide receivers in this draft class that I think offer more potential upside and, more importantly, more potential consistent play at the NFL level.